I get my phone to talk to me correctly. For the last 20 years or so, I've been reading the Bible through almost daily. Sometimes when I travel, I have to go back and pick up 2 or 3 days, you know what I mean? And I have come across a verse that I feel that God led me to it for something that was coming up in my life. Have you ever encountered something where you go, "What, Lord? You want me to do what? You want me to do it when? You want me to do it where?" And that is what happened to me with the Marshall Fire. As I said yesterday in my sermon, and the majority of you did not hear my sermon, so I'll reiterate some of the things that happened. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, about 10:30 in the morning, a wildfire started in Boulder County. Started out in the grassland, kind of an open, they have a lot of what we call ranchettes. You have them here in Missouri and Kansas. The only problem is Boulder sits right on the foothills, and it is known to have hurricane force winds. And those winds hit that fire, and within 3 to 4 hours, we lost 1,184 homes, literally burnt to the ground. The report that, some of the reports that I've read, the briefing reports, is that a fire department unit went out, took them 9 minutes to locate the fire, which was rather unusual, but because of the rural area, I can believe that. Like I say, the wind was blowing, they were evacuating people, and then the snowstorm hit. Then we had 6 to 8 inches of snow that put the fire out, but complicated search and rescue. Now you realize in the world of disaster response, search and rescue means the governmental authority, and in the state of Colorado, and I believe in Missouri and Kansas, now I may need to be corrected, the highest elected official in a county is the sheriff. How many of you know that? Yeah, some of you are going, You may be on the government side. In Louisiana and Arkansas and Maryland and some of these other states, in Louisiana, it's a judge. And I think it's in Texas. I need to check with some of my counterparts. But the sheriff was ordering evacuations, and people were doing the evacuation, which is very interesting because legally in the United States, they cannot force you to leave. They can request or state a mandatory evacuation. However, a significant number of sheriffs in the state of Colorado has said, you either evacuate, I'm not sending anybody in to rescue you. If you do not go when you are told, we are not risking the lives of firemen, of police, sheriff, whatever. You either come now or it's done. Because we've actually lost a couple of state patrolmen through the years, a couple of firemen, because people did not want to evacuate. They thought it was a hoax. Well, you see 18-foot flames coming at you, you better evacuate. And so I got a call, well, I was on a call from the VOAD, the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. Now you know that acronym, all right? And requested by the County of Boulder to do their donations management. Now, Boulder tends to be the Republic of Boulder. They think that they're an entity in and of themselves. Their county emergency manager is an educated fool. He will someday come up against an incident that he cannot force his management onto, and that's what he does. He plays a very interesting political game. I do not like him. I do not trust him. And as I'm driving over, now you have to remember I live on the western slope, so that means I have to drive through Debec Canyon. It's a river canyon. I have to drive through Glenwood Canyon. I have to go over Vail Pass that tops out right at 11,000 feet. And this is January. And then I have to go up over to the tunnels, Loveland Pass, down through into Denver, and back up to Boulder. And as I'm driving, I said, oh, Father, I don't know why you want me involved in this, because I knew it would become a political nightmare. And in 2 Corinthians 3:5, that verse basically says, and I'm going to paraphrase it, you can look it up, but it says, I can do nothing. I am so insufficient, I can do nothing. But all my sufficiencies come from the Lord. Everything that I am, everything that I do, everything that I teach, the people I bump up against, the ones I develop friendship with, all of that comes from the Lord. And one of the first major incidents that happened at this incident was another agency decided that they were the state of Colorado's emergency manager, donations management. This woman is one of the most deceptive, deceiving, manipulative, borders on a straight-out lie. I mean, we had attorneys reading some of her documents. Remember Tom, Christy Judd's brother Tom? Kind of a short, chubby guy. Anyway, he's an attorney, and he was reading everything that she wrote, and he says he comes right up to the real gray and then bumps back, comes up to it and bumps back. She created extreme stress and chaos for us until the director of the Homeland Security Emergency Management, Director Willis, said, does Kathy want her in the building? No, does Kathy need her in the building? We were on a phone call. And I turned to Noah McCord, my young liaison, and I said, need? No, the word is want. Do I want her in the building? No. I didn't realize that Director Willis could hear me. And he said, then why is she in the building? And she was ordered out. And he is the only one who had the authority to do that. It impacted us all the way through. I mean, all the way. I didn't get this, I'll show them on my computer. But they brought in, and you will find this interesting, sir, they brought in, without permission, over 300 Gaylord boxes of unsorted clothes items. Now, you know what a Gaylord box is? You go to the grocery store, and you know what a watermelon box is? You see the watermelons in a box sitting on a pallet? That's a quarter Gaylord. She brought in boxes that hit me right here, full of unsorted product. She thought she owned that. But the catch is that when she brought it into a state operation, it was now the possession of the state. It created a lot of stress for me. And more than once, I would just have to stop and pray, Father, I don't understand what's going on. You know what's going on. You take care of it. And he did. And you know, there's a verse in the Bible, and I know, I'm going to paraphrase it. It says, pray for your enemies. Do not wish harm on them. Well, Lord, I don't wish harm on her, but I wish you'd take care of her. Discipline her in the manner that she's not a Christian. She accused me of not being a Christian, which I thought I thought some of my team was going to attack her. But, God knows how much we can handle. So when you're put in situations that you don't know the answer to, who knows the answer? The Father. All right, let us pray. Good morning, Lord. Thank you for the rain that fell last night. The earth was thirsty and it drank it up. Thank you, Father. I think of everyone here, Father, and their loved ones who are out and about and doing whatever they need to do today, and I ask that you protect them. I think of our children and our grandchildren, and for some, great-grandchildren maybe, who are not walking with you. So we give them to you, knowing that you want them to come home to you as much more than we could also. Lord, open our hearts and minds today to this lesson. Teach us, Father, how to serve you through donations management. And in all that we say and do, through this work, may it glorify you. Thank you, Father. Amen. Oh, yes. Where'd the clicker go? I found it. I haven't lost my mind completely. We'll be adjusted that by the end of the day. Are you getting the right message? There. Introduction. Yeah, I noticed. All right. So Adventist Community Service Ministries. All right. It starts on page 8. Go back. Yeah, page 8. Never mind. Serving communities in Christ's name. Notice that. Our mission statement is serving action in Christ's name. So we need to be aware of that. And this is how we do that. All right, so we have disaster response, ACS DR, Adventist Crisis Care Network, Youth Empowerment to Serve. They've changed that acronym. It's not youth. They're calling it young people, I believe it is. I'll have to look it up. Okay, tutoring and mentoring. Elder care is now older care because there were some Adventists couldn't figure out why the elders of the church needed to be taken care of. And I went, oh, that's why God created women. Oh, okay. All right. So now it's called older care. And I said, I'm not sure I'm ready for that one, but oh well. Community development, urban ministries, inner city ministries. On the NAD website, now all of this should be in your notebook, guys. Page 8, is it not in your, wait a minute. Where did Charles go? Do you guys not have a workbook? He was so printed it out. They were supposed to we emailed it. But they did, you know what? Or use it down, and I cannot print it because everything's down, so that's right. Okay. Or use it electronically, because many people just don't. No, that will not work. I misunderstood. Is there a Staples, Office Max, Office Depot, something close by? Because you're going to need an on-hand notebook. Cindy, over there where we had dinner lunch yesterday? Was there not something in that mall? Okay. No. No. And I know the younger generation thinks that we don't need paper, but I'll tell you what, that is not so. Well,
So I can take it there, Kathy, if you've got it.
yeah, let me put it on here because they've got to have it in front of them.
Okay. Well, that was just a communication glitch.
Yeah.
We're like, everybody will just let everybody print it out, you know.
No,
'cause
no.
it's,
Especially when you're dealing with some of these generations.
So the one that I got, is it still current? Because I can just use my copy of it too.
Is it 2017, 2010? Let's look
Should I
at
look
it.
at it?
Because as long as you haven't wrote on it a lot. I apologize. We'll do it this way. She is going to go make copies. I apologize. This is the first time I have done it this way, that I traveled out of conference. In my life, I would have brought 3 totes with just printed manuals in it. All right, but this will work. We're not going to get into the meat of it until she gets back. Okay, so we have. I'm glad I caught that, because y'all are just kind of looking at me, and you're not supposed to be looking at me. You're supposed to be looking at the book. Yeah. So that's why I went, what? Okay, why am I not pointing? There we go. Serving communities in Christ's name. And when you think of this and you move forward, you will understand why that is so important. So you have the ACS training. You have the basic course. This is what you're taking. This manual is up for review, and we will be reviewing it probably in 2023. I get to be the chair of that committee. Okay, Introduction to Disaster Preparedness. There is a short course on this, but I feel it's redundant if I'm teaching this one, therefore you don't have to sit through 3 hours of that. You get it rolled all into one. So when you fill out the application for your photo ID, that is how you will fill it out. All right, donations, operations. Leadership course. We are revamping the leadership course. I found a draft manual on my computer for 2015. Let me explain to you why we're so weird at the division on this. COVID messed up our schedule. That's the best way to put it. And then we had change in leadership. And now with Derek Lee, we are definitely on track, and we will be getting all 5 manuals updated within the next 3 years. All right, leadership development. What does it take to be a leader in this work? One of the main criteria is you have to be a Seventh-day Adventist and good and regular standing. You have to have gone to 3 separate incidents and worked those incidents. Now, what I would like to see is that you work it in 3 different stages of 3 different incidents. In other words, there is techniques to setting it up. How the volunteers come in, how the clients come in, how the donations come in, where do you do the sorting? That is all crucial to the long-term part of the incident. And then how do you close it down? What do you do with all the things that are left over? And one of 2 things can happen depending on your state or county. They can say, we don't care, just get rid of it. Or we want it to go to these 5 agencies. In other words, Goodwill, Salvation Army. Do you have ARC back here? No. All right, that's a regional one. So they will tell you, and what you do, you or someone that you know makes contact with the managers of those and tell them, this is what we have. Are you interested? How do you want it? How do you, and notice the terminology, how do you want it to be when you come to pick it up? They come pick it up most generally. Gaylord boxes, not black bags, oh no, but in boxes that are labeled. So leadership, there's specific courses for that. Karen took the leadership training. I helped train that a couple of years, well, it was at the Union constituency. All right, you have to have donations management, specialized courses, an instructor's course. How do you teach is crucial. Forklift. How many of you are forklift operators? All right, good. You have knowledge, but in order to, and this is on your test, in order to operate a forklift within an ACS facility, you must take our training, you must be certified by me on the forklift that is present, and you have to be 21. Okay, remember that age, that is on the test, all right? Youth emergency services, that's oftentimes done in conjunction with your youth department. Emotional and spiritual care, we have become much stronger in that. I am certified. I am 1 class away from being an instructor. You get a blue card, and it will allow you, now in the state of Colorado, I don't know how it's in Missouri and Kansas, but in the state of Colorado, you cannot be a spiritual care provider unless you have been credentialed by your agency. We don't credential pastors. I'm sorry, sir. But both of you, because you're not really trained in caring for people in crisis. That's what this course does. The first level, level 1, is 13 hours. The second level is 13 hours. And the best way for me to describe this class is open your brain and pour it in. I mean, it is good. We've had pastors take it, and Pastor Bruce Morrison, who's the head pastor at the Brighton Church, he said, I had forgotten some of this stuff. I've not been using some of these skills. So he was very glad to take that. One of the things that you need to remember about when you are in an ACS facility, many people are strong people of prayer, and I respect that. However, you cannot force a prayer onto someone. If you want to be praying a great deal, go to the sorting area and pick up those pants and say, Lord, I don't know who's going to wear this, but bless them. You know? Or I wear a button, and I don't have it on today. It's just a little, like a campaign button that says, may I pray for you? And I've had people go, I forgot and wore it into Walmart one day, and this lady said, yes, you may pray for me. And I go, oh, you know, it's like, duh, you know. I said, do you want me to pray here and now? She goes, yeah. I says, what are we praying about? She told me, we prayed. Okay? At the Marshall Fire and other incidences, I have pulled my team together, and we've prayed. I said, we have, you know, this is a problem, let's pray about it. So, none of us like to have other religious philosophies forced onto us, right? So therefore, we do not force our philosophy onto other people. The deal is, if they ask, you answer. But you make sure your answer is only to answer their question. Not this wide, but this wide. Okay? Additional training. This is, and remember, the manual's coming. So all of this is going to be in the manual for you, written down. Okay, that's the website. FEMA classes. In the IC, which stands for Incident Command, and I have explained to several incident commanders that IC is nothing really new. And they will look at me. If I know they're Christians, I go, look, Moses developed it. It's the Moses system of command. Somebody has to be the chief for all the you know, has to make that final decision, and then it works its way down. So IC 100 is the basic. IC 288 talks about donations management and other agencies. That class will be taught by a state trainer. And Charles can help you know when that is available. I'm sure Missouri and Kansas has a trainer calendar on their website, okay? IC 700 just is an expansion of 100, and IC 800 is the national framework, all right? You don't have to worry about knowing all of that. That's just for your information, okay? What? They're all online courses. And let me tell you a secret. I have the answer sheets to 7 and 8. It was really interesting. We were looking for something else and we come across the answer sheet. Now, it doesn't say question 1, answer 1. You still have to read through all of these to find the answer. And that you're actually learning when you do that. So you have my business card, yes, if you have trouble with them. And you can go back and repeat the course until you pass it. All right? And are they actually on-site training now, or do they only do them?
I've done all mine online.
Yeah, I do mine online.
Are these courses free? Or
Yes, ma'am.
all
All of them are free. So you can take them at 2 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep. Okay. Why?
You know your projector is the right above you.
Do I get to shoot you? You want? I'll just tell you in advance, sucker. When I point to you, you do the next one. All right. American Red Cross. We have a new memorandum of understanding with the American Red Cross, so they know what we do, we know what they will do. What is so interesting is people at our level have never seen that MOU, so I carry a copy of it with me and I help them understand how they are to support us. Okay, the local radio club, or do we have any hams in this room?
My license is expired, I just pulled it.
Okay, one of my goals is to become a ham operator, because if the cell towers go down, ham radios will be functioning. And what is interesting, in the midst of the Marshall Fire recovery, I believe it was in April, Verizon's system went down. And all of the state of Colorado phones, State Patrol, EMS, fire, all of this, could not communicate because their cell phones were down. They had to revert to the old radios that they all carry. It was, I guess, it was pretty funny.
Where do you go get that training?
Where do you get what, Hem? Online.
Where at?
There, just type in ham radio training, operators training, and you can find it online.
That's now online?
Yeah.
Because I have to get to the class.
Yeah, it's all online. Okay, the purpose. This course provides basic training in donated goods and operations, which is a major function of ACS-DR. Now, in every incident, there is a timeline.
Kathy, there are markers, I bought markers right over here.
On the stand.
On this stand here, Kathy, where the mic is.
Oh, somebody put marker. Oh, well, gosh. Thank you. Because they couldn't see the crayons yesterday. All right. Most likely, what you will have in Missouri and Kansas, two things that will impact your need to respond. One is a tornado, right? You will agree with that, right? All right. And the other thing that you will have is floods. Lots and lots and lots of water. What? Can't have that one yet. I'm not ready for it. Yeah. How many of you know what the Pneumatic Fault is? Ah, interesting. All right.
We had an exercise, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was there in Jefferson City.
No.
Oh, here local? All right. For those of you who do not know what the Pneumatic Fault it is the earthquake fault that runs up the Mississippi Valley, and the worst case scenario is that the Great Lakes will drain down through that valley.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, the bridges across the Mississippi canals.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you need to remember is it will impact 7 states. The boot of Missouri is actually a filled-in swamp. I attended the largest FEMA tabletop in Jefferson City, I think it was 2019. This is where I learned some of this stuff. Because it's a reclaimed swamp, the soil will become liquefied. And look up that term. It's very interesting what happens, okay? So it impacts 7 states, every bridge across the Mississippi, every electric line, all the power system. There is a significant number of gas lines and that kind of stuff that go up to the northeast. And they say if this happens in the wintertime, the secondary deaths of people in the Northeast will be in the millions. And so you guys will be directly impacted. They will triage to Denver. Well, if there's a car accident, there is someone who determines whether you'll live or die. I know that sounds terrible. I've taken the training and I pray to God I never have to use it. So what they teach us is if you look at someone and they've got a beam through their chest and it's obvious that they're not going to make it, put a red dot in their forehead. And if they have only a broken leg, then you put a green dot. Or no, it's a blue dot. You put a blue dot, which means they can wait to be evacuated out. But if you have a severe cut and you tourniquet it and they're going to live, then you put the green dot and they're the next to go out. In other words, somebody determines whether or not you live or die. To a hospital? Well, depends. They're talking because Denver has so many trauma hospitals, the metro area. There are other ones along the way. I realize that, Hayes and Salina have good hospitals, Wichita, Topeka, but they're talking as far out as Colorado, okay? And it's scary, guys. It's really scary. So you have the incident, all right? This is called the emergency phase. It's happening, it's happened. Who do you want to respond in the emergency phase?
First responders.
What?
First responders.
EMS. Emergency medical system, who is also with EMS. They drive the big red trucks, the fire department, okay? Okay, who else? What? Okay, yeah, I've got ringing in my ears, guys. I've got two sounds going on right now. But we're going to give it another name. We're going to call it the law. All right? Because there are multiple levels of the law. So you have the little town, right? Okay, I'm going to use my hometown, East Colorado. Okay, little town has, I think it's got 4 guys on the police department. Okay, then you have the county sheriff, but also between here you'll have the cities, Kansas City, Lee Summit, all of these, and everybody knows where their lines are. They know what street their jurisdictional authority ends and begins on. Does that make sense? All right, in Denver, it would be Aurora and Lakewood. I've seen the guys sitting, parked, you know how the park, one policeman is pointed to his jurisdiction, the other one's to the, and they're sitting there talking. I'm sure, they're talking about where the best donuts are. Okay, so we have the police, then we have the county. All right, then you have the state patrol or state police, whatever the terminology is in Missouri and Kansas. All right, they have the greatest jurisdictional authority right now.
What do you do if you have a Native American reservation? Because they have the authority on that.
Who what?
Native American, there's a reservation.
Yes and no.
Which?
Yeah, yes and no. You see, she brought up a very interesting fact that tribal nations have their own jurisdictional authority, but they have written agreements with jurisdictional authorities that are with them. In other words, the state patrol, the National Guard. Yes. So when you are working, how many tribes are in Missouri? How many?
No, it doesn't mean in Missouri, there's in Kansas, in Iowa.
In Iowa, there are, let me tell you something, you ought to work in Oklahoma.
We're not recognized tribes in Missouri.
Yeah, you have to be recognized, you have to have a charter, you have to have a constitution. It's very detailed, okay? But tribal nations are a jurisdictional authority, and they are a sovereign nation. Yeah, hi. Okay, so then you have the State Patrol, and then you have the Army National Guard. And they serve at the pleasure of the governor. That's what my son was in the Guard, my brother, my nephew. Cindy's daughter is in the Guard, and that's the term of the pleasure of the governor. In other words, the governor can say, activate the Guard, they are to do whatever. And during like your earthquake scenario, yeah, the Guard has medical units. These guys are well trained, they work in hospitals, you know, they are well trained. So the law has multiple levels to it. All right? Who else?
Well, for the law, we used to call it LEOs, for law enforcement officers.
Oh.
That was a term that they, yeah, that's a term that they recognized.
Huh.
If you say you're an LEO, then they all know that you're a law enforcement officer.
I hadn't heard that one. Thank you. Learned a new one. See? Okay, like that. All right. So, what? Who else? Say that again. Are we talking Yeah.
You have public health.
Electricity
Utilities.
providers.
Now you got it. Okay.
Gas.
All right. So you have the gas, electric. All right.
You have public health.
Public health. Okay. Public health.
Search and rescue.
Okay, that will come up here in these three groups. Okay, now you realize that there is when they use the term search and rescue, they anticipate finding a live individual. When they switch to search and recovery, they do not anticipate finding someone alive. And we were listening to the Marshall Fire. I was getting ready to go, and they switched it, and I sit down and I said, oh no. And Michael goes, what's wrong? I said, they don't anticipate finding anyone. We lost 2. That's not too bad out of 1,184 homes only to lose 2 individuals. All right, who else?
SEMA, the state.
Not yet.
What about like roads?
Now the reason that I say not yet, and make sure I'm right on this, is that the state has to write a request to FEMA that they have spent X amount of money.
I didn't say FEMA, I said SEMA, the state emergency.
I apologize, sir. Yes, okay, all right.
Emergency management.
So SEMA is
SEMA.
SEMA. Is that for Missouri?
No, every state has like Kansas has one that I work with, and so does Missouri. So does
Colorado's is a different acronym. I'll have to think about it, what it is. Yeah, but it's your emergency managers at all the levels of the law also have emergency management. You have a city, you have a county, you have state, you have federal. All right, and so what happens is there is a dollar amount. So, and I'm going to go back to Boulder because I know this, okay? The 2 little towns, communities in Boulder County, Superior and Louisville, were very, very damaged. I have statistics on it. And they said to the county, we can't do this. And there was a dollar sign. In other words, they had spent so much dollar or anticipated the expenditures of like $180,000. That's a number that I know was available a couple of years ago. So they go to the county, they write the document, the mayor signs off on this, sends it to the county administrator is getting all this feed from everybody, the county emergency managers and all of these people. And he sits down and he tallies it up and he goes, we can't afford this. So then they go to the state, and all of this is happening. You never know that this is happening. It's all behind the scene. And the state says, okay, we're handling it. Can't handle it anymore. Then it goes to a presidential declaration. And there's paperwork all up and down because it becomes a legal matter. Anytime you put a dollar sign, it becomes a legal matter. Does that make sense?
It does make sense very much.
All right. So, according to the Constitution of the United States, currently the federal government cannot force itself onto a jurisdictional authority below the federal government. Now notice how I said that, according to the Constitution today. All right, so who else do you want?
Sometimes the state might send the DMATs, the Disaster Medical Assistance Team.
Yes, they're part of this. Yeah. There's a medical team, people who volunteer to travel. Okay. Chaplains. You're awful close. How about the American Red Cross? What does the American Red Cross do for us? Shelters, medical assistance, money. They will give people gift cards. Okay? All right. Who else? There's another group out there called the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army will feed you. They will feed you vegan. The team up in Northeast, out of the metro area, know that I cannot have gluten or soy or corn. And they go, Kathy, your plate's over here. And it's free. Okay? Then there's one other group that is beginning to stand up more and more at the beginning of an incident is the Southern Baptist and Team Rubicon. These two groups are specialized in training. In Colorado, the Southern Baptist and Team Rubicon are the only teams that can go out and cut down trees in a burn area because they've had correct chainsaw training and they know what they're doing. Team Rubicon will do muck out, what we call mucking out. And the reason for that, when you think about if a basement has water in it and the pressure on the inside of the walls and on the outside of the walls are equal, you have a problem. No. But when you start pulling the water out, what happens to the walls? They start doing this. So you've got to know what you're doing in order to do that, and these people are trained. Then it's right here that ACSDR begins to stand up. In other words, I, Karen, Charles, whoever pastor back here would be on statewide calls, the VOAD and other state calls, and they say to me, are you ready? Yeah, I am ready. And then I began to talk to my leadership team, and we begin the process of determining what will happen. So what we do is we begin to look for buildings of community collection centers. This is where all the stuff comes into. And this is just an overview. So when she comes back with the manuals, we'll go dive into it more. Then you have the Emergency Distribution Center. And in order for you to come into that Emergency Distribution Center and to receive services from us, we have to verify that you are in the impacted area. Yes, well, actually, there's something before the mark. The DAC, Disaster Assistance Center. This is a FEMA term. At the Disaster Assistance Center, all the agencies that you can think of, the public health, the animal people, the mental health, the County Board of Realtors, insurance, the State Insurance Commission will be there, because you will have homeowners, and I actually had this happen and helped this young couple. They were renting a house and they had a big picture window in the front when the tornado hit Windsor, Colorado. And the landlord said, "You were living in the house, you will replace that window." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Well, he's going to get insurance." And I said, "Oh no, oh no." So I walked them across to, well, we drove across to where, in the gym, where this DAC was, found the people that they needed to talk to, and the Board of Realtors for Weld County said, "I don't think so." Because it wasn't right that the people who were renting the house had to pay for the window. Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, talk about a scumbag. So this is a FEMA term. We are usually not present at the DAC. However, at the Emergency Distribution Center, particularly, or somewhere in between, we will do a MARC, which is a Multi-Agency Resource Center. Now, that MARC is where all of the VOAD or whoever from the VOAD or other groups want to come in, and they come in self-contained is the word. You bring your own table, you bring your own chair, you bring your own computer, your extension cord. Don't ask me for anything. I'm only the host. And they set up what their services is. It's like, you realize that the Lions Club will buy glasses for people? Yeah, they will make an appointment. They have optometrists in the community that they have, most generally the optometrists are Lions. They will do the physical for your eyes and you don't pay a copay, you only submit it to your insurance, so you don't do the copay. Does that make sense? The Red Cross is there because the Red Cross will make sure that your prescriptions are refilled. They'll actually do that at the shelter, but if you know, here, all right, the VA is there to make sure the veterans have all the assistance that they need. And the reason they come up with the MARC and the DAC is so it's a one-shop stopping for people. And the state of Colorado is realizing more and more that you put the MARC in ACS DR buildings, because where do we see the people repeatedly? They come in, we develop a friendship with them. I may not know your name, but I would recognize you. And they get to know me because I'm the lady in the yellow shirt who answers all the questions. Or I act like I answer all the questions, yes.
Is the CCC and the EDC in the same building? How far away do you have to collect it and then move it?
Both ways. And in recent history in Rocky Mountain, we've contained it all in one building. It depends on what you have available. Yeah. However, and we'll discuss this in the manual, and I don't like this, they say, oh, put a distribution center in a church hall. No. What do churches want their halls for? Church. And one of the things that you will learn and discover in the recovery process is that when schools start, reopen, and when you start having church, the community has started to recover. The new normal is being established. Now, this can go anywhere from 1 day to however long that it is needed. In the manual, it says 3 to 5 days. When you have a multiple large incident going on, the emergency phase will go for as long as needed until it is declared 3 S's: safe, secure, and sanitary. You do not ever self-deploy. In other words, you do not stand up and say, I'm going to go do this in that flood area. No, because you do not know what is safe, secure, and sanitary. Okay, for a moment, just stop and think about floodwaters. What is in that floodwater? Oh, nasty, nasty. In fact, I don't know if any of you know Pastor Wayne Nazarenas. When the Red River flooded up in the North Dakota in 1997, it was the first time I deployed a team out, and Pastor Wayne went up and he worked in muck and gut. In other words, he would go out and clean, and when they came home, you took the clothes off and you put them in a trash can and you took a shower and you put on new clothes. And where did those new clothes come from? The collection and distribution center. They were always coming over and getting things that weren't nice enough to be given out to the regular client. But if, and skin rashes and, just the sewer system, it goes across the barnyard. Nasty, nasty. And in wildfires, now you're less likely to have in Kansas. Actually, I saw a wildfire coming across Kansas, a grass fire. Missouri, you can, because of your forestry here, all it takes is the wind blowing and the fire will change directions. Yes, Pastor?
Well, we had major wildfires 2 years ago in Kansas, terrible.
Yeah, you've lost a fireman. You lost a fire department chief south of Alma. That was during the Marshall Fire. Yeah.
I also want to say, in water, power lines are down. You get in water, you can get electrocuted.
Power lines are down. There's the creepy things called water moccasins and, those kinds of things. So you do not self-deploy. You do not predetermine that you're going to go to a site. And this is how stringent I am about this issue. I have actually pulled someone's credentials and cut it up in front of them and told them to leave. And then I called the division and said, this person is now denied the right to anywhere in North American Division to be trained or certified. That's how, because you put not only yourself in danger, but all of these people. Because what if they have to come in and rescue you? You better not in the yellow shirt need to be rescued. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
You're talking about somebody that's been trained and going
Yes.
self-employed. Not, because I know we helped with a flood in a town 73 or something, but we had no permission to do anything. If you're talking about people,
But there was predetermined, before you went, it was safe and secure and sanitary. Did a state patrolman allow you through the gate? Have you ever been told by the National Guard you cannot enter? Would you drive around that barricade? Good. Well, let me tell you something. Oh, well, honey, they do it in Colorado all the time. During the wildfires of 2002 down in Durango, when they had the Missionary Ridge fire, I was the VOAD chair, drove down there, and here was this young National Guardsman in his uniform, and this lady's pointing, and he's just going, no, ma'am, No, ma'am. The barricade is up. They would not let her go in because it was not safe. And he just kept shaking his head. And she kept pointing, and I'm, Now, if it's a restricted area like with martial law, you can work with this. Your conference director would talk to the jurisdictional authority and say anybody with this credential can come in. Does that make sense? Because you know what's on the back of this credential? It's some legality things. Yes, sir.
I was just gonna, you talking to me?
Yes.
I was just gonna comment that a lot of times, well-meaning folks, well-intentioned, will want to volunteer, but it's always best, at least we were always instructed, to go through a specific organization.
Right.
Because then there's less chances of creating other issues like what you
Right.
said. But it also foments a sense of credibility.
You better believe it.
And everything that goes along with that, so that you can really be a better service. So
Right.
when you go through an organization, it's going to be the parent thing, that the entity that's going to guide you how to really be able to use those great skills that a volunteer has, and not just show up.
Yes.
And to provide safety for the volunteer. Because people know you're out in the community doing things so that when you come back that they can account for you. Because if you get lost somewhere in a disaster, they don't know you're out there, and how do they know to come look for you?
All right. That's very true. And see, and I don't know if you've had to sign the document, Pastor, but when we go out and we lease a building, or we don't lease the building, the state leases the building, but I signed my name to a $4.5 million liability insurance policy. The first time I had to do that, I went, okay, Lord, and I signed it. In all the years that I've done this, I've only had to report once to the insurance company, and one of my leadership staff backed into the back door of a store, $3,000 to replace the door, and everybody's going, is that all? So the reason that you don't self-deploy again is because you don't have liability insurance. Okay, that is so important. And in the state of Colorado, ACSDR is known for carrying that liability insurance. In the state of Colorado, and I don't know, I can only speak for my state, but all of my leadership team has been vetted. How many of you have been vetted by the church? Fingerprinted.
You mean by any organization?
You go to the sheriff's office and you take your fingerprint, and then you submit it to HR at the office.
I've done that for other jobs.
Well, if you're going to become a leader for ACSDR, you have to do that for us through the conference. Now,
So what previously been?
doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Honey, I've been vetted by about a dozen places, all at the same time, because I was a teacher, and I was this, and I was that, and
Is that in addition to the shield of vulnerability training?
Yeah, there is that shield of vulnerability. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Does that count? I mean, because
You have to do both.
okay.
In our conference, you have to do both.
But it's two separate databases.
Yeah. So that's something for you to think about. And it is to protect you. Yes, sir.
Back of the badge. You were going to say something about the back of the badge.
Oh, the back of the badge. Thank you, sir. On the back of the badge, it says the disaster response volunteer works under the supervision of Adventist Community Services Disaster Response, the disaster response agency of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, under the terms of the NAD Working Policy H10.65, the Memorandum of Understanding with FEMA and the American Red Cross, and the principles of the National VOAD Active in Disaster. So it is. You hand this to State Patrol, he reads that and goes, oh, okay. Or when I was in New York, Hurricane Irene, when I needed to go down into their bunker is like 6 floors down. You go down a series of steps and the hatch will close and you can live down there for they say 6 months. They have food and water and all that good stuff. My badge had expired and I missed that. And the guy wasn't gonna let me in, and there was a FEMA guy who knew me. He said, let her in, I vouched for her. But they overnighted one up to me from the office, okay? Yeah. It is fairly handy. Yes, sir.
All of the scripture you're giving us is good, great information. But how would you address the least popular government department today? It's FEMA. In the public press, the failures that have come from FEMA are good, dovetail in underneath an entity that really has not demonstrated its ability to handle these criteria.
Who's setting the criteria for handling? An example that I will give you. Remember during Katrina, the governor of Louisiana, who was a Democrat, and we had a Republican president, would not sign the document requesting assistance from FEMA. She was sending blistering emails to the president. That's not the route that you take. Her Department of Emergency Management had all the forms filled out, but they would not sign them. Where does that fall? Is that on FEMA's fault?
This is not just one instance.
I do not have the authority or the right to address that question because I don't have enough information. You may, sir.
I worked with FEMA for 10 years. It's been many years ago. I have been in many disasters and never in one instance when the folks in the disaster area went running happy to see FEMA and the other people with them. They are always very happy. What you get in reports from the press, whose number one thing is to get readership from the politicians, whose number one thing is to get votes, both sides, doesn't matter. The organization has not always been as efficient as it could be, because it's a government organization that has to follow set rules built by others.
We don't know what they're doing. Oh, okay.
The reputation is
Starts and ends locally.
Yeah.
But the ground up work that you see, most times people deal with these local folks, volunteers from us, our Victory Cross, our Army. I worked with all of them at different times in my career, and it always worked. Obviously, everybody expects that when FEMA comes in,
There's a blank check.
within 2 days, everything's going to be back to normal. Right? There's no way to meet those expectations.
And I would echo what you're saying because I was on the military side for many decades, and so a couple of decades, two plus decades, and we worked with FEMA. And I was proud to work with a lot of the FEMA teams that I did work with because, like you said, it takes time. But the politics are, especially at Katrina, the politics were horrendous. And I spent months there in Katrina, and we did have successes, but it was when we helped calm things down and let the locals do it themselves that we were like facilitators, if you will. But the press can be so kind of unfair because of the way that they would characterize things. And I was very proud of
Okay.
what we did.
Pastor?
If there's a major disaster, I think one of the things we need to pray for is that FEMA will get involved. My experience with our Drought in Kansas is that the FEMA guys are always incredibly helpful and always willing to assist and so on. disasters are difficult to deal with. And so,
Yeah. Let me give you an example of how the press crucified FEMA. Katrina, Safe Haven, Lowry, Building 9, dormitory where people were living. We put up you know what a snow fence is, an orange snow fence that said the press was not allowed beyond this point, okay? Then the Rocky Mountain newspaper printed on Sunday in bold caps, FEMA is operating concentration camp. So the lieutenant governor, the governor was out of country, called a press conference, and because when I work under the memorandum of understanding, I represent the governor's office, and thankfully, I have taken the FEMA PIO classes level 2. I know how to behave, which is so nice. I mean, you know, and there were 3 young black pastors, beautiful young men. I would like to know what happened to our 3 amigos. But it was predetermined that Pastor Robin would speak to that question. And so, you know, we're standing behind the mic, Pastor Robin gets up, gives his name, his title, and all this stuff. And the question was, when are you going to let the press go into the building 900? And it was a God moment in my book. Pastor Robin said, when you allow me to come tromping through your house into your bedroom to inspect your closet and to see what you're eating, we'll discuss your going into their home. Yeah, that was a just right, because if the governor had gotten up, the lieutenant governor, and attempted to explain it, what would the press have done? You know, but because he was a neutral party, and he said it so eloquently. I just loved working with these 3 young men, you know?
The Holy Spirit is very powerful if we allow it to be.
Well, there was no need for that statement. You know how stupid the press is? How did you feel when your house burned down?
Oh, yeah. Or how did you do?
How did you feel when you found out your son drowned?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the level of intelligence worries me. You know, so there will always be what seems to be failures. However, FEMA and every jurisdictional authority are controlled by laws that we do not see or understand. FEMA just cannot come in. Everybody in that line, the local, the county, the state, has to fill out the documentation, it has to be filled out correctly, and it has to be submitted in a certain format. It's like during the Marshall Fire, when the state of Colorado said we want to pay up to $25,000 of your expenses, and I go, tell me how to go about it. Thank God, literally, thank God I had kept every receipt. I had copied every receipt, and it was in a file in my computer. Would I have failed if I hadn't had those receipts? Yes. Would my treasurer not be happy with me? Probably, since he didn't know it was occurring until I told him. But the thought that I got $25,000 to pay for expenses from the state was pretty awesome. So when the press starts crucifying federal agencies or government, they are after something. That's the best way I can say. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then hopefully we can work on your question as we go along.
Oh, it's just a point of very commonly throughout the press. Yes, we all know good news doesn't make news. Bad
That's
news
right, and that's, yeah.
There still is a reputation FEMA has to live with.
Well,
What you're describing here makes me shudder somewhat, because that's the biggest complaint against FEMA, bureaucracy.
You think the church does not have bureaucracy? Pastors. Have you ever said in a constituency meeting?
One of the cares is the process.
All right, let's talk Oh, yes, I can.
So were you in New Orleans?
Yeah.
And you evacuated out?
No, I didn't live there. I went down there to help.
Okay.
I worked down there. The people that we were helping were the Adventist churches. Our Adventist churches, some of them that were getting help, brothers that were turned up, our people, but that were trying to get help. And so we went down there to help them. It was a turnaround.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yes, you're right, brother. That's a good catch. Thank you. That's more accurate. Yes, sir.
Because he's understanding you mean for ACS? At the conference level? And right now, and that's what I thought too, but that's why I stopped. Just continue. I taught at KU, practitioner program, and things like that there. I used to different areas. I went back and helped the Army with family medicine department at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas stuff. And I just
Yeah, for those who are sitting, yeah. Yeah. So where am I pointing it? Oh, that's right. I'll just point to you. That simplifies my life. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, let's come back together. Do we have folks other places? Yeah, Charles, if you'll come, then I appreciate it. Okay, a couple of pieces of housekeeping. Back on the music stand is the photo ID paper that you need to fill out. All right. The location is, where are we at? Kansas City Central?
Yeah.
KC Central.
And I think are the tests there also?
The what?
The test.
Yes, there's a copy of the test back there. Okay. Yes. So what I need you to do, and I will put the little pieces of paper back there. There's paper, like a half sheet of paper. You fold it in half. And you write your name on it. Last name first and first name last. And then put your conference, whatever conference you're from. So whoever is doing the photoing of the volunteers here, volunteers, you hold it up here like this. And then when they send it to the division, they've never messed, I've messed up, but they have never messed up. All right, does that make sense? Because they crop this out. If you hold it right here, they crop it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we in Rocky Mountain we call it assume the position. Because I've had police officers say, this is like down at the county jail. And they go, yep, this is your ID. All right. Now, your conference I think, should be paying for the photo credential, okay?
How much is it?
Well, it's, I think, $7 now. Okay, and the other thing that you are not to fill out on this form is the date of birth. That is what is called trackable data. And it is illegal to track that. And on the driver's license number, oh man, that's trackable too. The last 4 digits, yeah. Oftentimes I just look at your ID and initial that it's been verified. Okay, so who is doing, Pastor, you're doing Kansas, right? Oh, you're going to do both? Okay. I would prefer, who is doing Central States? Are you the only 3 here? Okay, then we'll verify driver's license, okay? Iowa, anyone from Iowa? No.
I guess I'll do, unless Charles is going to do it, I can take care of Missouri, Iowa, and Missouri.
Iowa and Missouri. Okay, I would prefer that we not capture the driver's license number.
Okay.
You can verify it if ready. In Colorado, it's against the state law. And if I understood it was going across. So, y'all are over 18.
Yeah, I'm youngest is 29.
Oh, okay. So, I will put back here on the music stand, there's just scraps of paper, and fold it in half, write your last name first and your first name last and your conference. All right? I'll get those back there. And then when we get ready to do this, like during lunch hour, if you have this done, you can quickly get it done. All right, we'll move to the next slide. You must stay here the entire time of the course, and it says score at least 75 on the exam. Don't worry about that. Next slide. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I am experienced and I am certified. I have a right copy. Matthew 25, 35 through 40. Next slide. Next one. There we go. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison. The next slide. And you came to me. The next slide. The righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? Next slide. And the king will answer them and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Then the king, so in Desire of Ages, next slide, page 14, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon his throne of glory, and before him shall be gathered all the nations, and he shall separate them one from another. Thus Christ on the Mount of Olives pictured to his disciples the scene of the great judgment day. And he represented its decision as turning upon one point. Now this is in your manual. When the nations are gathered before them, there are two classes. Their eternal destination will be determined by what they have or have not done, or have neglected to do for him in the person of the poor and suffering. Now, the way I read that is that there are, to me, the gospel is a two-edged sword. One side of the sword is to know the Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior. Personal relationship with Christ. The second edge of that sword is this very statement. If we as individuals, and not as a denomination, if we as individuals are not taking care of God's children, we will not enter the kingdom of heaven. You can pay all the tithes you want. You can keep Sabbath. Sabbath keeping is excessively important because that's part of the relationship with Christ. All right? I don't see anything about being a vegan. There are things that people in the Adventist church are setting up as a standard, and that is not the standard. This is the standard. This is the standard, and I'm going to get a little political here. But when conference presidents and union presidents refuse to take the money and have a community services department that is strong, not that you're doing all you can do, but when it is not a strong leadership, they are violating the principles that Christ has set up. I have been doing this job for over 30 years and have never been paid a full salary. Not that I'm complaining, because you know what? God has given me everything I could possibly need and a lot of what I wanted.
My late husband was on the board of Catholic Charities here in Texas.
Right?
And you should see what it is. Catholicism aside, there are people that have a heart.
What?
There are people that have a heart for people.
Amen.
That's why when we get to heaven, there won't be just Adventists up there, folks. And if you have that problem, we need to have the pastors do a Bible study. Okay, Isaiah 58 slide. Is this not the fast that I have chosen? Who is the I? God has chosen it. Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out, and when you see the naked, that you cover him? Slide. Now I love this. Do you know what God does? This is the awesomeness of the Father. He gives a command, and he says, if you will do this, then this is what I will do for you. And he says, if you do the fasting correctly, if you take care of those in need, then your light will break forth like the morning, and your healing shall speed forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. How important is a rear guard? Where will the devil attack you? From your most vulnerable point, and that is often your rear guard. Ask anybody who's been in the military in combat. How important is the rear guard? Because the enemy might sense that that is your weakness. So, ministry of healing. There is a need of coming close to people by personal effect. The poor are to be relieved, the sick cared for, the sorrowing and the bereaved comforted, and the ignorant instructed, and the inexperienced counseled. We are to weep with those that weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. Slide. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And like we talked, who's the oppressed? You know, we talked about that yesterday in that class. James 1:27, religion that God our Father accepts is pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted. I thought that was an interesting word, polluted by the world. In 1 John 3:16 through 19, this is how we know what love is. This is the standard for love. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possessions and sees his brother in need but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? Dear children, let us not love with words or tongues, but with action and truth. This is how we ought to know that we belong to the truth, and how we set our hearts in rest at his presence. Okay? Pretty good Bible study. And like I said yesterday, I did not realize that the chapter, Bible readings for the home, the chapter on the duty to the poor, was part of the baptismal process before 1920, was it? I did not know that. I think we ought to go back to that. I think we need to be more aware of where we're at. The next slide. In 1874 was the first recorded incident of an Adventist group responding to a disaster. And you know what I think it is? Somebody's log cabin burnt down, and all the ladies in the church said, they're going to need some things. Let's get the quilt bee going, and let's gather the things up and take it over there and take care of them. Can you see that? 1969 to 1970, Adventist disaster response had begun. In 1970, we become a part of the VOAD, the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. 74, FEMA. We had the memorandum of FEMA. And I was after Derek Lee about the FEMA MOU. I said to Derek, do you realize that at least one of these guys is dead who signed this? What's the validity in that? And so during the Marshall Fire, this is a plus minus. We've set up the facility we were trucking along, getting the mess cleaned up from this other agency, when I got a phone call from Mickey Troust. Mickey Troust is Colorado Department of Homeland Security Public Information Officer. Lady that you want to keep on your side. She said, FEMA, the director of FEMA, Deanne Criswell, would like to tour your building. And I go, really? Why? Because she wants to see what you're doing. And come to find out later, my friends at FEMA Region 8 were bragging about us. And she and her entourage walked through our building. That was the first time that a FEMA director has walked through an ACS DR building. We gave her a tour, showed her all the fun and wonderful things, talked about things that we're doing. When she came from the sorting area, was on the second floor downstairs, she stood there and she looked across our building, and I'll show you pictures at lunchtime, I've got a few. And she said, I want to shop here. Can I shop here? That's how well arranged it was. Then what happened about 2, maybe 3 weeks later, Derek gets a call from somebody at FEMA that says, we need to update the MOU. Yeah, memorandum of understanding. FEMA is saying to us, we need to update it. We're all going, oh, that's interesting. Good. I guess we did our homework. All right, American Red Cross, pastors, do you have the latest MOU with the Red Cross? No. Send me an email asking for it. All right, because I'm not going to remember to do that. You need to remind me. That's okay, it doesn't bother me. We began to have the MOU with the government of Bermuda. By the way, how many of you have passports? Oh, nice. All right. I got to go to Saipan and teach the people on the island of Saipan how to do disaster response. We were within one phone call of going to Puerto Rico. Yeah. So if you are trained in this and you have a good leadership team and you have a passport, I will remember a number of you have, you know, that's something we need to capture. On that photo ID page, write, I have a passport. So that I can tell Rebby's administrator assistant back in NAD, that I want her to start capturing that information so that we know you have a passport. All right? We National BOAD charter members. The Christian Reform World Relief, they have since changed its name. The Mennonites, National Catholic Disaster Relief, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, Seventh-day Adventists, American National Red Cross, and the Southern Baptists were charter members of this. Keep going. I forgot to look up. Keep going. Just keep going. That's not my phone. Okay. All right, keep going. You don't, this is just kind of FYI stuff. All the way through that slide. Okay, again. Okay, again. Agreements, all right? Now we're there. The National ACSDR Director administers the national and international agreements. The local conference ACSDR Coordinator Director must work with the NAD ACSDR and appropriate union ACSDR Coordinator Director to administer the local and state agreements. Do we have anything with Kansas? Okay, double check on that, please, sir. And I know Nebraska has one, but I don't know how current it is. Okay, so we need to check on that. And I think that's gonna come under my being union coordinator for Elder Tyrone. So I'll need to see that. I would like to have a copy of that at the union office, okay? All right, page 16. Oh, that's not for you, that's from back yonder, I apologize. We're moving through the manual, guys. All right, Hurricane Andrew. We began to work Hurricane Andrew in 1992. That's what the first warehouse looked like. Now, there's some problems with this building, and I'm going to take it apart and put it back together for you. And when I make these statements, you will understand this. Nothing ever sets on a cement floor that is not on a pallet. Because cement, if you set a cardboard box on the cement floor, moisture will come up to it. Not only that, but if everything's already on a pallet, you can slap a pallet jack underneath that sucker and move it really quick. Does that make sense? All right. They've done really good. They've got the clothing hung. They're attempting to organize it. For the skill sets and the knowledge that they had, they did a good job. All right. Who will get your pallets? That's in the MOU with the state. I remember turning to Devin Davis during the flood of 2013 at Loveland, and he said, "What else do you need?" And I said, "I need 100 pallets." And he goes, 100? I go, "No, make that 200 pallets." And he goes, "How soon?" I go, "Yesterday." Because we were beginning to get enough stuff in that we needed to put things in boxes and get it off the ground. All right? Next slide, please. Hurricane Andrew. That's the exterior of that building. The only thing with that building is, and we probably did not have banners to put up at that time, and you can get banners made fairly inexpensively at Office Max, Staples, those kinds of places. And you know, the best way to store these, and I know this is crazy, but I figured this out. It took me a number of years. You know the rolls that Christmas wrapping comes on? Then you roll those banners up and you buy the tall Christmas paper wrapping boxes, and you store those standing up, and they don't deteriorate. It's weird. Like I say, it took us a number of years to figure that one out, but we did. Okay, Oklahoma City bombing, next. Next. Okay, what is today? 9/11. Do y'all remember where you were? Yes. I remember talking to my son. I said, "Marcus," he goes, "Don't ask Mom." He said, "Crystal's packing my go bag." Called my brother. "Don't ask. Don't ask." He said, "My go bag is by the door." Thankfully, at that point in time, neither one of them went. But they were, with each airplane that went into a tower, the military went up one more scale of alert till they were at red. And let me tell you something, if you're a military family, your heart seizes. That's the best way to put it. You just start praying. Okay, next picture. Next picture. Hurricane Andrew, Louisiana, 1992. Oklahoma bombing, April 19th, 1995. Terrorist attack, Hurricane Katrina and Rita. Yeah, we rewrote manuals after Hurricane. Oh, FEMA rewrote a lot of things after Katrina and Rita. Hurricane Ike. And this is where the history stops because the manual needs to be upgraded. Next. Hurricanes. Looks like down on the Gulf of Mexico. All right, next. All right, so coordinating efforts. Government and volunteer agencies depend on ACSDR to respond to disasters, big and small, to handle donated goods. It is very important to coordinate efforts with other community and VOAD members of organizations to share information about needs and resources. So, we do not do everything. We do one, the term that I like, a disaster response is like a superhighway. 16 lanes, 76 lanes. Our lane is donations management. Does that make sense? And others will zing in and out of us. They'll come along. An example of another agency is during Katrina, Safe Haven there in Denver, I get a call from a restaurant called The Fort. And The Fort does high-end steaks and that kind of stuff. And he identified himself. And I said, okay, sir, how may I help you? And he goes, I've got 400 pounds of frozen turkey legs. And I'm going, 400? What am I going to do? I go,
Do you have a freezer to go with it?
I solved it. I said, sir, I'm not doing the food service out here, but do you know Mike Delsky from Salvation Army? Of course I know. I mean, this guy's got a French accent. Of course I know Mike. I go, why don't you? I'll just call Mike. So 2 days later, guess what we had for dinner? Turkey legs. You see, it was donated to me, but I sent it to the more appropriate agency. Does that make sense? All right. So that's the coordination and the cooperation and communication that goes on. And you need to be aware of the VOAD members in your community. Pastor, yes.
We say there's two disasters. There's the actual disaster and then there's donations.
You better believe it. Yeah. And that's why we have to handle the second disaster. I'm going to give you a third one. Unaffiliated volunteers. And you want an unaffiliated volunteer? Now, you're affiliated, right? You're a part of the Adventist Disaster Response team. You get your credentials, you're affiliated. These are the ones who, after a tornado, show up in t-shirts, tank tops, shorts, and flip-flops, and they want to clean up after a tornado. Yeah, y'all are laughing, but I've seen it.
I can cop that one.
Well,
Shorts, flip-flops, and a quarter chainsaw.
oh, good Lord. Okay. No. Now, see, my son is a steel chainsaw factory certified safety officer. And so when we start talking chainsaws, I have Marcus on the phone. And his comment was, Mother, I love it when my son uses his sergeant tone of voice on his mother. Mother, you do not just want any redneck out there with a chainsaw. So his father, this is pretty funny, his father, we'd bought some property, we had to cut down a number of trees because they were beetle infested, and we were creating a fire zone, a safety fire zone around our home, and I took a picture of his father and sent it to his son. Michael was out there in shorts, tennis shoes, no safety goggles on, nothing, and I sent it to Marcus. I said, Dad's kind of busy today. And then Michael's phone rang, and I could hear Marcus talking to his dad. Where is this? Where's your safety goggles? I just walked away. I am at times just the wife. Okay, American Red Cross. We talked about what they can do for you. And by the way, if a Red Cross personnel walks into your facility and starts telling you what to do, say, you are not certified, in donations management, please leave. Because there are some Red Cross people who think that they're God's messenger and they will attempt to control you. Yes. Sheltering and medicine, first aid, yeah, and gift cards. Yes. Now they can come in and say, we would like to help you, or we, you know, I mean, I've had him walk in and this one Red Cross young man, he comes in and he has this bag and he goes, we can't give these out, they were gift cards. I go, why not? And he goes, because we didn't purchase them. I go, oh. He goes, can you? I go, of course I can. Took them from him. See, that's that give and take, you know.
Don't they also do blood drives?
What?
Don't they also do blood drives?
Depends on the state.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. In Colorado, they don't do them in Colorado. All right. They do it. I know. I was the blood drive coordinator for Sherman County a number of years ago in Kansas. That's Goodland area. Yeah. Okay. Church of the Brethren. Usually they do child care. Church World Services does long-term recovery. Feeding America, the food banks, Humane Society, the animal people. They will say to you, do you need, and what they're, you know, you're looking for, like kennels and dog food, cat food, and leashes. They will help you with all that. And they might even ask to come in and post pictures of found animals. And so you have a wall that, you know, you use painter's tape. Do not use duct tape. You use painter tape to put it to the wall, and then people, oh, look, they have my puppy. Oh, good, I'm so glad. Healing goes on. Lutheran disaster response, long-term recovery. Mennonites, now the Mennonites are an interesting group of people. They will come in with 18-foot cargo trailers, completely loaded with all the carpentry equipment that you can think the world has. And what the long-term recovery committee does is, and I use my Grandma LaRue needs a ramp to get into her house because the flood waters, that's all she needs. Well, here's the lumber, there's the porch, and they do it free. And they rotate their teams in about every 10 days, I think it is. They are wonderful, wonderful people to work with. Really enjoy getting to know them. Salvation Army, food, and it depends on where you're at. They will also attempt to do donations management. If ACSDR is not strong in donations management, they will do it. Ian Anderson, Colorado VOAD chair, Salvation Army. During the Marshall Fire, his national people were saying, why aren't you doing donations management? And he said, because Kathy and ACSDR is doing it and I will not. But what we did do to Salvation Army is that we had like almost 400 pallet boxes of items left over. We said, how many can you handle? And we gave to them probably 100, 150. They came, picked them up, and took them away for us. But during the incident recovery, I could call Randy and say, hi, Randy, Kathy Kistner. He goes, what do you need today? I said, we need snacky foods and we need beverages. Oh, my guys are loading. We'll send it out to you. And here they come with pallets of those things for us to give away. You see the give and take? A wonderful relationship. United Methodist, CORE, long-term recovery, grief recovery, crisis care, those kinds of things. All right, next. All right, but before we go to that slide, there is a pledge that you need to think about. You need to treat all people equally and deliver services without discrimination. Of course. You need to respect cultural and religious differences and attempt to accommodate these differences. Of course. You see, we're not the only ones who don't like pork. the Jews and the Muslims, okay? We respect that. You accommodate that up to your capacity. Protect the confidentiality of clients and refrain from disclosing sensitive information. It is a legal issue. You do not talk about a client using their name outside of the distribution center. You do not ever give a government agency a client's name without the client doing it themselves. Now, there is a form, and I didn't bring my box. I should have. I'm learning, guys. You know, you're the guinea pigs. I've never done this before. So, but I have in there what is called a Release of Confidentiality. It is a legal document. And Marcus Kistner reads through it, and it says his name, and then you date it. And then it says, I'm willing for my information to be given to, then it lists the VOAD, government, whatever else, and he can check. I've actually had people mark through the government. They don't want the government to know anything. That's their right. They'll talk to the VOAD. But that is called a Release of Confidentiality. You need, okay? And guys, what we did is we took the youth department, they have some of those documents like that, like a release of photo, you know, so that when children are up at camp, they can take the picture. It's that same type of release, so talk to your youth department, because that's already gone through legal. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, be mindful of the expenses and ensure that all donations are used for the intended purpose. You don't take the items out and sell them. And within this statement, we have a refuse the right for service. So if we think people are hoarding or taking the items and selling it, we can actually refuse to serve them. Because we did have some people at the Marshall Fire, when we got the high-end clothing, you know, the t-shirts that are worth $60, they were coming in and getting them and selling them. And my comment was, if they are in that desperate of need and they're willing to go to all of that work, we have so many of them, I'm not going to worry about it. Okay? Avoid engaging in any illegal activity. Is it illegal to smoke marijuana in these states? Okay, well, you can smoke it in Colorado, but you can't smoke it in my building. All right, support the Christian principles and mission of ACS. Any questions? Would you have any difficulty? I don't think this group would. Yeah, good. Okay, next. Oh, no, we're here. Okay, an occurrence. I love this definition because it comes from American Red Cross. An occurrence, such as a hurricane, a tornado, a storm, flood, high water, wind-driven water, tidal wave, earthquake, drought, blizzard, pestilence, famine, fire, explosion, volcano eruption, building collapse, transportation wreck, or, this is the key, the last sentence here, other situations that cause human suffering or create the human needs that the victim cannot alleviate without assistance. Okay? Yes. Well, that's why we need to update it, and you're right. We need to include that. Hostile intruders, I believe, is the correct words. A hostile intruder, whether they have a gun or a knife or whatever. I think that's the term that's being used, but that needs to be added to this, okay? All right, next slide. A declared disaster is one in which a government entity officially declares that a disaster situation exists. In other words, your county emergency manager, your city emergency manager, your state, they've gotten reports on the roads, they've got reports on the water system. It's like in Jackson, Mississippi, rather. The problem that they're having with the water in Jackson is not the flood. It's that the infrastructure of the water system has never been updated, and some of the system is over 100 years old and it has collapsed, and everybody kept pushing it away. We'll deal with it next term. Well, the term has come. Okay? All right, presidential declaration, we talked about this here. A federal or national declaration is one in when the President of the United States or the Premier of Bermuda makes the declaration, and that is done after he has received documentation. All right, on page, types of disasters. Keep going. This slide is so old it's not funny. We're not even going to talk about it. Okay? Types of disasters. Now, I lived in Kansas and I've lived in Nebraska. I have never lived in Iowa, so you're going to have to help me with this, all right? But types of disasters, the first type, next slide, is natural disasters. Okay, next slide. We have technological, social, health, and international crisis. Can you say that currently, at this time, we have all of these disasters occurring? Yeah. All right, so we're going to break it down. Next slide. Avalanche. Now I have to chuckle because I live in the Rocky Mountains. Do you have enough hills to have an avalanche? Don't have enough snow to have an avalanche. Actually, 4 years ago, it was before my husband retired, every avalanche chute in the state of Colorado was active. In other words, it had moved. And let me tell you something, that gets scary when you're driving mountain passes. Okay, a conflagration. What is a conflagration? A fire that is uncontrollable. The example of this is in 1997 when the Red River went through Bismarck, North Dakota. The flood waters was like up to the first, second story of some building, and the rest of the building was on fire because they could not get the gas shut off, and so the fire was leaping from building to building. New Mexico, Arizona, the rodeo fire, not other fire, I'll have to think about the name of the other fire. Two major forest fires got together, they met together, and there for a while, they felt uncontrollable. It was a conflagration. Now you realize that there are two types of fires. And the reason I got church members, I got family members, Derek Lee is a retired fireman. There are two types of fighters. There's the structure fire, and there's the wildland fire. Now, a lot of your rural fire departments cross-train. Because how you fight a structure fire is different than you fight a wildland fire. Okay, in the federal government on the firefighting side, they have teams. And the lower the number, the bigger the fire. So if it's a little grass fire out here and the local department takes care of it, it's not even numbered. But if it grows to a certain acreage, then it's a type 1 or type 5 fire. That tells me, not very big, I don't get worried about it. Then it goes to 4, and then it goes to 3, and when it hits 2, they send in a manager who is trained, and they have names, like the black team, and I don't know, all different types. But when you hear of a type 1 team going in, that means the big boys are there, and we're talking thousands of dollars. The slurry airplanes that drop that retardant, you're talking $75,000 a drop. Hi, taxpayer. You see, you are the federal government's bank. Yeah. If the federal government is spending money, whose money is it? Hello, taxpayers.
Thank God they're spending it on things like this.
Well, it is, in this case, it's well spent. You know, yes.
And when I've sat at the airfield where these things are taking off and on, they're leaving it just fast as they load and unload the tankers and the helicopters and things like this.
Yeah, we were, there was wildfires in Colorado, and where we lived at that time was in the Grand Valley at a different location than where we are now, and we watched that tanker take off. My daughter and I were on the north porch, and you go up, and the valley, literally, it's a round valley, and there's the book cliffs are on the north, and the National Monument is on the south, and Mindy and I are standing there, and we go, it was, as I look back on it, it's kind of comical. We're going, get up, get it up. Because it looked like they were going to fly into the book cliffs. Get it up. You know, I mean, come on, guys, get it up, get it up. And we watched, and to us, it looked like they skimmed the bottom of the airplane as they circled around. Now, I'm sure there were several feet, but to us, it was, you know, and when you stand on your porch and you watch the trees burn that are 25 miles away, that's dang scary too. Yeah. When you get up in the morning and the ash is so thick, I walked out onto my patio and I said, what in the world is going on? It was ash from a fire that was 20 miles north of us, the Pine Gulch fire. Okay, drought. Are you in a drought? Parts of Kansas, western Kansas, it's severe drought. Okay, parts of Colorado, we come and go on the scale. This rainstorm brought us down here. 10 days later, we're back up here. Okay, earthquake. What would be interesting for you to do is to type in your state to list the epicenters for earthquakes in your state. Very interesting. Flood. Well, yeah, consistently. It's an interesting term. Yeah. All right, flood. You have swift water and slow rising floods. Okay? Those are pretty self-explanatory. Hurricanes are tropical storms. Well, the outer banks, it's the outer edges of the hurricane. From the eye to the outer edge of the hurricane is 500 miles, and it's coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, you can receive rain from that hurricane. I've seen it, experienced it. Now, tropical storm, not likely, unless you're moving to Missouri and Nebraska and Kansas, somewhere else. Okay, slide. Okay, landslide. Dust or dirt storm. Oh, mercy, yes. All right, slide. Ice, snow, ice, hail. You guys have more ice back here than necessary.
Yes.
Tornadoes. Yes. All right. Volcanic erupt. Are there volcanoes in Missouri? There are in Colorado.
No, but that's not the one you need to worry about. It's Yellowstone. Yeah.
We have inactive volcanoes in Colorado. What is the largest volcano in the continental United States? Yellowstone. Now, what is interesting, see, when you substitute teach, you learn all these little pieces of things. And I think it must have been about fourth or fifth grade. And I taught a lesson on volcanoes. Did you know the actual eruption will not kill you? You know what happens is the ash, which has a high level acidity, goes into the jet stream, circles around the earth, and then falls down in the rain. So guess what's going to kill you? Yes.
It will fall on the trees and all the crops, which will cause all the crops to die,
Yes.
and then trees to die.
Yes.
So there'll be no food available.
Yes. It will eat the paint off of the car. So what would it do to your skin? Yeah, a lot of this is documented at Mount St. Helens and some of these others. Okay, so yes, windstorms. What? Kansas? Oh, windstorms. In fact, I got out of the car at Salina to gas up. This gentleman says, "Man, it's windy," and I go, "Oh, honey, you're in Kansas." There's one place that has wind worse than places in Kansas. That's Casper, Wyoming. Yeah. All right. Pictures. These are of tsunamis. It was not the actual first, when the water went out, what they found is that people, when the water went out, people saw fish and other things out there and they ran out to get it, and then the waves came back in, and the number of drownings was astronomical. By the way, where will we have tsunamis? What? The Northwest. Seattle, that area up there, they actually have tsunami warning systems out on the Alaskan coast, in Hawaii, and I don't get alerted when those go off, but I have friends who do up there. Okay, that's really, and when one of my husband's favorite places to go fishing is Sitka, Alaska. You see, when you live in Colorado, where do you vacation? Alaska. So we go up about every other year, and that was the first time I saw the tsunami warning sign was in Seward, Alaska. And I read that sign and I started looking around, what hill should I go up? So it's very real, okay? All right, technological disasters. Oh, what is the difference between a brownout and a blackout?
Low voltage on the brownout.
Okay, a brownout, you have limited electricity. If you own a freezer, do not open it. Wrap it with a blanket. It will stay frozen for over 48 hours if you wrap it and do not open it. Refrigerator, basically the same thing. A blackout means no power at all. And usually you're notified of that. California is going through both brownouts and blackouts due to the heat and the lack of the ability to generate electricity. Okay, next. Dam failures. Okay. The greatest concern that I have in your states is the earthen dams that are not inspected by the Corps of Engineers. It would be interesting to do a Google search for your state, your county, and find out how many earthen dams are there. Now, the major dams, Lake McConaughey, what is that dam called? It's out by Sydney, Nebraska, Ogallala. Yeah, that would be a large dam break, oh mercy. The Platte River would get cleaned out. The dam at above Fort Riley. What? Okay, yeah, there's that one. Are there any major dams in, what dams are in Missouri like that?
It would be Lake of the Ozarks.
Yes, that would be it. See? Okay. All right, Truman. Yes.
And also Mark Twain.
Okay. Longview? Oh, that's nice. Okay, that's encouraging. Okay, so we could have dam failure. There is, yeah, every state does. But it's some of these little earthen dams that, yeah. There is, oh my word, 2,000 dams to inspect, okay. There is a term, I'll have to think about the term, about the water pressure as you go down at the base of the dam, the water molecules concentrate and they begin to eat away at the dam wall. I learned this teaching class one day. Okay, but there's a term for it. I haven't opened that file for a while, so I'll need to think about it. Okay, industrial explosion. Do you have a gas station? Industrial explosion. Okay, mine accident. Are there mines in these states? Yeah, the salt mines in Kansas. Mines in Missouri. Colorado have mines. We have mines. All right.
That blew in the 80s.
Right.
35 and massive blew out windows for miles around.
Yeah, in fact, we were at church when we had the Paonia church. Neighbor come running into the church and he said there's been a mine accident and miners are caught behind the rock fall. And I mean, we stopped, we got on our knees and we started praying. An hour and a half later during potluck, we were told they were free. Talk about a little bit of that's a little mind chilling, okay? Fire. Yeah. Grassland fire, forest fire, house fire, all right? We need to be aware of that. All right, types of disasters. Yes, sir.
Can you clarify for me, everyone, these disasters that you're enumerating, aren't of the magnitude or I imagine FEMA will always be called in?
You're right, not always.
And how does, shall we say, our collective involvement begin if FEMA's not involved?
Okay. Yeah, every disaster starts local. So your city, county, emergency manager would ask you to stand up.
So it's still directed in by local officials?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Every disaster starts local and ends local.
So FEMA only comes in the chain of requests?
Yes. Yes, good. Very good. Yes. That's a good clarification question. Thank you. Yes. All right.
The technical answer is that FEMA is a secondary responder. The magnitude, but now I'm understanding.
Okay, good.
A county or state could trigger these emergency response needs.
Yeah. So FEMA's not going to come out if you have a house, 3 or 4 houses burned. But you have 1,184 houses.
What's the lowest level of request? Depends on whether it's an election year or not.
The lowest level of request is the local jurisdictional authority. So it's the town or the city or the county or the state. Does that got it? All right. Look, we're talking a different language here. So if you have questions that need to be clarified, please tell me. Yes, sir.
Well, sometimes a disaster can be very, very localized. For example, for the last time I did this class, we had to create a scenario of what was going to happen, and we chose a dam break. And when we did the study on where the height of the water and things like this, we realized that the people impacted was going to be very narrow, but was going to be hugely massive. And the response had to be designed to fit
A channel. It's a channel of a disaster where a hurricane will cover hundreds, if not thousands of miles. In the Midwest, we tend to have a channel. The flood, the fire, the snowstorm, the blizzard, smaller impacted topical regions. Does that make sense?
Like the tornado in Joplin.
I ended up in Joplin. Sent down by the division. It was fun. Okay, let's look at technological disaster. Or did we got the mines next? Okay, pipeline explosion, fire, and leak. Is there a pipeline out here? Yep. All right. All right. Oil spill. All it takes is one truck. All right. Next. Okay. Now we're gaining here. All right. The pandemic and the Epidemic. Yes, we've had an epidemic and now we've had a pandemic. Do you think we're done with this mess? Eventually, we will learn to accept COVID-19 and the variances as if it was a common flu and common cold. Well, you know what is interesting? A few weeks ago, my daughter came from Kansas. We were up camping, and on Sunday she goes, you know, Mom, I think I have COVID. And I went, what? She goes, I can't taste anything. I can't smell anything. Great. She'd been with us all week. My husband tested positive 4 times, and he got sick. We didn't go to the doctor. We just isolated. He took cold medicine, took lots of naps, drank lots of fluid, got over it fine. I tested negative 5 times. I went to the health department. I got the worst sore throat and headache I have ever had in my life. But I tested negative. And what we think happened, I had a variance. But I did the common sense thing when I was out and about. I wore a mask. And you know why you wear a mask? It's because the moisture molecules that your mouth spews out can be captured by that mask and is less likely to contaminate other people. Does that make sense? So if you're uncomfortable, as several of my friends are here, they're wearing masks. Wonderful. That's your right. That's your privilege.
It's a respiratory.
Yes. If you have compromised respiratory system, right. Yes.
I've had several people in public settings who expressed that they had, on an annual basis, were hospitalized because of their allergies and other things, except during the pandemic.
Because everybody was wearing a mask.
Because they wore a mask and were not subject to the things that normally they were impacted by. They said,
right.
Masks have become way of life for me because
in
August, when I had my normal allergy attacks, I'm going to wear a mask.
People didn't have cold last year.
Yes, and we need to be respectful of that. Your best mask to wear is an N95 or hospital grade mask or a K95, I believe it is. Yes, they are now available at Walmart. Okay, social types. Okay, next. By the way, what other kinds of flus, what other pandemics can we have? I need to go back. What other kind of pandemics may we have? What?
Have we had? We've had the
Swine flu.
The Hong Kong flu, the swine flu, we've had
avian flu. The state of Colorado, I don't know the story, how many millions of chickens because we had avian flu. Polio. All right, measles, mumps, chickenpox. At one time, it was a statement that they were eradicated in the U.S. Then we have the illegal immigrants coming in and the legal immigrants coming in who bring them back in. Yeah. Just a moment. Okay. Yes, sir.
Not legal immigrants, because the legal immigrants come, they have to go through a vaccination process. So you cannot be ready without.
Well, it's not everyone, but there is always within a group of people, including this group, of those who are not current in vaccination or current in certain things that can be carriers of.
And let's be clear, Facebook does have a lot of that misinformation where on vaccinations. In Rotary, polio was almost eradicated. There were only 5 cases in the world.
Right.
In the world. And that was just a few years ago.
Right.
So it can be
completely eradicated. Yes.
Completely eradicated.
Yes.
People have to take the vaccine. And the place they weren't able to do it was Afghanistan.
Right.
And because of the tribal stuff. And
right.
also, I believe one case was in Nigeria. Now, this stuff in the water, it's in the water, but people have to get their kids vaccinated.
Well, we're not going to go politically there. Okay. But
I had a doctor call
The common cold will always be there. Use common sense. But you know what? Common sense is like deodorant. Are you ready for it? Common sense is like deodorant. Those who need it, don't use it.
You do know common sense is dead, right?
Well, I think we had several funerals here lately on it.
Oh, there's a obituary for it.
Yeah, okay. Types of disasters, let's go on. Arson, yes. Bombings, yes. Social disturbances, riots, not yes. Labor strife, yes. Terrorism or hostage incident. Public schools are very much aware. Okay, I'm going to tell you something that is going on right now. And this is very scary. Pastors. 2 weeks ago in Fort Collins, Colorado, I happen to know my assistant director for that area is the safety officer in that church. 2 weeks ago during morning prayer, a young man who visits the community asked for prayer. He asked that the church members would be praying that he did not hear the demon voices in his mind, that he was to shoot up the church and everyone in it.
Oh my goodness. We don't have to kind of help here in this country, that's true.
Yeah. Thankfully, the couple of the gentlemen in the church knew this young man, walked him outside, visited him. Someone else called the police. The police station is literally right across the street from the church. They sent over several officers, a mental health officer also. They convinced the young man to go to mental health. But you can only hold him in Colorado for 72 hours without a reason.
That's almost universal.
I think so, you're right. Anyway, we need to be aware of how many regresses are in this building that are unlocked on Sabbath morning.
That are unlocked, just two.
Actually, during church service, none. They're all locked. I locked them when church starts.
Good, thank you, I like that. Do you have a protocol for a fire in a church? Have you ever practiced a fire drill during the middle of church? A tornado, you've done a tornado? All right.
A good time to practice fire drill is when you are done with church. Yes.
But do you think that's when it's going to happen?
I can tell you for a fact, there was a fire drill done here at this church. We announced it, not a single person moved.
All right. How do you, within your church system, alert people that there is you need to evacuate? What system do you have? Built-in system?
They have to be an announcement.
All right. So you've got 6 Sabbath school rooms. How are you going to evacuate them in a controlled manner? I have a solution to these problems. Okay. You have boat horns. Boat horn. You know, on a boat, if you don't have a built-in horn, you have to have this little canister thing. And, they're loud. They are loud. You know, and there are designated people, not one person, but a group of elders, deacons, these kinds of people that know where those boat horns are located and the code to activate them. How many of you know what Code Adam is? You ever been in Walmart? And all of a sudden, it says over the associate Code Adam. The last time that happened, my grandchildren, who are now taller than I am, were little people, and I said, Brittany, get in the cart, Trevor, get in the cart, just stay right here. And I kept one hand on the cart, and I began to look at all the children. Where's that one? Oh, there's that one's mama. There. Code Adam means the child is missing. Do you have Code Adam in your churches? You better have it, yes, okay. Now, the other question is, do you have an evacuation plan? If this building was to go on fire, where should we all go? I didn't know that.
Depends on where the fire is.
Well, that's true. So you need to have a designated, at least 2 or 3 designated areas, particularly to the children's department, because have you ever seen how a parent will act if they cannot get to their child and they think they're in danger? I was substitute teaching at the Leadville School District when the boys said to me, Mrs. K, we're under a lock-in. We are? You see, the stupid thing about school districts is that they do not send notification to substitute teachers. And many a time there have been more substitutes in the building than the teachers. And I said, lock in, doors and windows, doors and windows. So, pulled all the blinds, secured all the windows, walked across the hall to Mr. Havelstall's room. I stood at the back, he nodded, he saw me, he came back, and I went doors and windows in the hallway. The students were not allowed to rotate to the next class until the all clear had been given. Then we found out that in Buena Vista, there had been an IED found in the janitor's truck that was parked at the library. And so you come into Buena Vista, like this is the main highway, and then there's a little Y over here that you go to other parts. The library is here, the fire department's here, and the police department and the county auxiliary building is there. It did not have a battery in it. I made the ultimate mistake of texting my son and said to my combat trained son that whatever he heard, I was safe. My phone rang. My son is in his sergeant mode. He's yelling at me, where are you, Martha? I'm in Leadville, I'm fine. And then he made an interesting statement to me. He goes, Mother, you do not understand what that IED could have done. The majority of the injuries that would have occurred is that all the glass that was blown out of the buildings, he said it would have demolished Buena Vista. All right, fault IED, we stored that one away. About 4 weeks later, I am in Buena Vista doing elementary 5th grade reading for Mrs. Bear. Loved to do her classroom. Very organized, very structured, good, you know. Lunchtime comes and goes, and a teacher steps to the door, and she goes, did any of the girls go to the bathroom since lunch recess? And I look at all the girls, no, ma'am, we did not. Okay, something happened in the bathroom? Who knows? All right. A few minutes later, the assistant principal comes to the door. No, sir. Then the police chief is at the door, and he goes, I will watch your classroom go into the bathroom. I went into the bathroom, and taped to the wall was a sign on a white piece of paper with black marking, there is a bomb in this building. And my thought is, oh God, none of my kids are out of my classroom, they're all in my classroom, okay. Went back in, what's going on, Mrs. K? I go, oh, something's going on in the bathroom, don't worry about it. I mean, you can't say to them, oh, I saw something, you know. Fire alarm goes off. My brain goes, roster keys, I mean, that's the two things, roster keys. I said to the children, you know how to line up, get it done. Lined up, walked out of the building. And I'm a substitute, and all the other teachers are pointing to my place on the sidewalk. You know, they're helping me line my kids up. I look at them, they're going like this. Nobody can say anything yet. Pretty soon, you know, 5th graders are poking each other. Would you guys just sit down? No gyration going on, sit down. The other teachers, sit down. Pretty soon, the assistant principal comes and he says, move the kids to the sidewalk. To the curb. Okay, guys, let's move to the curb. Now they got little rocks to throw at each other. The kids go, why hasn't the fire department come yet? I said, they're coming. They're coming. Then the parents and grandparents begin to come. I did not know them well enough, in fact, I didn't know any of them, to release a child to them. So the teacher next to me said, join me. So we just, moved over here, and I wrote her, and she dismissed kids. This was all within a 20-minute time period. An hour and a half later, the bomb-sniffing dog came up from El Paso County, from Colorado Springs, and cleared the building. But let me tell you something. That scarred me. I'm responsible for 28 children, and I'm in a building that has a bomb in it. Listen, guys. All it takes is one person who is unhappy with the church over whatever. And pastors, this is directed to you. You represent the authority of the church at the local level, and they will come gunning for you. I've had police officers say that. What is your process in your church if you have a hostile intruder? Very sobering. Have you had a police officer, law enforcement of some sort, walk through your church and tell you how to secure it and what should be done? Now, Charles, I know you're really good at it. Yes.
I'll give you another scenario. The church feels threatened, as in when I lived in Houston during the Blackout section.
Yes.
And the church members were packing guns inside the congregation.
Well, that's a plus minus.
Yeah, I know.
I will not tell you if I am today or not.
No, I understand the plus and minus of it, but
seriously,
think about the gunplay. If somebody got angry and you had the guns in the church, what would happen between them?
You know what the legal term? You know what we were told in Rocky Mountain? That if someone conceals and carries, and you know it, that's private information, but you cannot schedule a conceal and carry. In order to schedule a security guard, it has to be a contracted position because the liability then shifts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. We had a church member at one of our churches walk up to him, to my husband. Now, my husband is a hunter, and there is a loaded 12-gauge shotgun on his side of the bed, and there is a loaded pistol on my side of the bed. It's a Smith & Wesson 383 with 12 in the cartridge. In the magazine. And my grandson said, Grandma, I'm going with you to get your conceal and carry. Yes, dear. I'm serious. This church member walked up to Michael and went, pulled his jacket back and put it back, and Michael was okay. Jeff was carrying. He carried every Sabbath he was in church. Did it bother me? No, because Jeff is a balanced, mature Christian man. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You need to be careful. You need to know what the state laws are.
Yes.
If there's a sign posted,
Right.
with no guns, you cannot walk in there with a firearm. So you need to know what the laws are, and and you need to know what the
Yes.
because you need to be careful as a church that we don't go and advocate things that there's a conversation that has to be had with the conference.
Yes.
So we don't get ourselves in trouble.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You need to know your law, your state laws, but you need to be prepared at this level to handle a hostile intruder. Yeah. My daughter-in-law is a 5th grade teacher, and we talked continuously about what she would do if she had a hostile intruder in her classroom, and we came up with a very good solution. In Mesa County, every school room has a fire extinguisher. She said, I would use that sucker on the intruder, then I would have my students throw everything possible at that to distract them, and then I would beat them over the head with it. And I went, oh, go, girl, go.
So the other day, there's one of the guys I work with, golf balls.
Yeah.
You ever get hit upside the head with a golf ball?
Yes, I have. I have younger brothers. All right, we're gonna wrap this part up. Hopefully Karen will return to us here shortly. Maybe somebody should text her and make sure she hasn't gotten lost. Okay, yes.
Advanced risk management also
Yes.
encourages all of the things that you were talking about.
Yes.
It's appropriate.
It's appropriate. All you have to do is talk to risk management. There are videos out there. There are safety Sabbaths. There is so much information out there now. There are people who have been in law enforcement who now specialize in how to help churches, you know, secure their buildings. And you don't have to have a gun. No, but what is your plan, man? Yes.
What I was wondering is, what if you have a lot of elderly people that are in their 80s and 90s in your church? What do you do?
You create a plan to help them evacuate. You work on it. You have, and you know, guys, my husband is a pastor. Okay. We were discussing this. He said, if you're going to pull a fire drill on me, let me know so I know what sentence to end at. Does that make sense? The pastor needs to, your pastor is your IC, your incident commander. Oh, there's Karen. Yay, Karen. Yay. All right. So you need to develop a committee, a safety committee. And if you don't have the documentation, talk to risk management. I have some information that this is because I've run into several incidences. Okay, we're gonna finish up and have lunch here in about 6 minutes. All right, what slide? Oh, types of terrorism, the next one. Activation is based on the size of the disaster. All right, you know what? This is a good stopping point. All right, so lunch is ready? Yes, no? Pretty close? Yes, ma'am.
Everybody walk around for 5 minutes and it should be ready.
Okay.
What were we supposed to write on the piece of paper besides our name?
Okay. Your last name first, and your first name last, and then your conference. All right, and pastors, whoever is in charge of taking the pictures, any like a doorway or the door that has a background, I use my cell phone. They hold it up, they step up there, I go click, I go smile, smile, click, click, and you're done. And then whoever sends in the forms, you match the forms to the photo and send it to Rebby at NAB, and I have all that information. Yes.
Rebby Isaac?
What?
Is it Isaac? The last name?
Yes. Rebby Isaac. Beautiful young woman. Love the girl. Okay, let it stand. And I want you to touch your toes. No. All right. Pastor, he did last night. It's your turn. Would you please say grace for the food? Thank you.
Let's pray. Our kind, loving Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you that we can all come together here to learn and to take what we learn seriously. Lord, I pray that you will bless this food to our bodies and bless our fellowship together. For we pray this in the holy name of Jesus. Amen.
Just one other announcement. There is a basket for donations for lunch.
Oh yeah.
So just to let everybody know, but